See you later. Let's give you back the timelines. Then we'll bring in an analyst briefing on this issue. Femi Awoyemi from ProShare Nigeria is on a standby on the phone to talk to us about this latest release of certain individuals. But let's show you the timelines once again on the sake on market infractions, just as Femi gets into us on this very particular issue. It was sometime in the middle of the year that the SEC says that about 260 firms and individuals will be dragged before the Investment and Securities Tribunal, headed by Mrs. Nena Orji, to ask questions related to insider trading, insider abuse, the use of depositors' funds to buy some of those shares and other market infractions that occurred essentially between 2006 and 2008 after the Central Bank of Nigeria finished with his own audit of the 25 banks and indicted about 8 of them for various malpractices. Now, certain names are recurring in some of these issues that are coming. Falcon Securities, of course, has been mentioned in some of these cases. His name appeared in the AfriBank list that was released on the 29th of July, and it's also appearing now in what the SEC released yesterday in the case of Union Bank, a PLC. Of course, the relationship between Union Bank and Falcon Securities have well been documented. So let's bring in Femi Awoyemi right now into the picture. Femi Awoyemi, thank you very much for coming through this morning on this very particular matter. Femi? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, Femi, can you hear? Can you please hear? Can you see us very clearly?
Very well.
Okay, if you could please increase the level of your voice, that will help us a little bit on this issue.
Okay, then. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly. I think that's better. Thank you very much for coming through at very short notice. This came in overnight, as it were. The key issue is that the SEC has decided to release piecemeal this list of market infractions, firms and individuals involved. But the key issue here is that, yes, SEC is doing something, and but the groundswell of opinion is that why don't you give us the lists at a go?
Well, I think you got it right, Richard. You came in late night. I think SEC has turned up into a new way in which it releases information late in the night. It seems like it's a comedy show. Because what is the rationale in making an announcement and then going on to turn it into a soap opera? The market requires less drama at this time, less sensationalism. That is why the SEC is called a regulatory body, as if it needed any reminder. An incomplete list is a clear indication that the whole purpose is designed towards a plea bargain, hence the selective release of names. The infractions are not new, nor do they represent a smoking gun. It is a rehash of the CBN expose, and the SEC should by now know better. If it has to prosecute, as it should be done in a way and manner that promotes transparency, full disclosure. Let's look at it this way. The SEC announced early this year that it was suspending 36 stockbroking firms that have all but stopped existing, but in name. Up to today, no follow-up. Diamond Securities were suspended, and the public communication up to today, no follow-up. 260 entities, all related to the CBN investigations, not any new investigations by the SEC, which revealed serious insider abuse and price manipulation, very serious offenses, are now being treated like a game. Why make the announcement when you had actually sent them to the ISC and then selectively release names just about the same time that the market has been going through difficulty just about picking up? It is not only distressing, the process, not the act itself, is infuriating the market, rightfully so.
Femi, I'm sure you've read the newspapers this morning, and most of the commentaries had been that, well, this is good for the SEC to handle, but why do what you call selective disclosure? if the SEC under Aromaote is preaching full disclosure, let everybody have the same information at the right time. You said this is perhaps tailored towards some plea bargaining for certain individuals involved. How do you think this will go down well? We're less than 8 weeks to the end, or 8 weeks to the end of the year.
One of the critical components of regulatory oversight and control is the ability to manage communications to the market, between the market, and from the market. You cannot accuse 260 entities and put the whole market in disarray, where investors do not know who's of the stockbrokers he wants to deal with, what possible sanctions may arise from it, or that whether the rule book will be applied or some level of plea bargain may be. Now, even in their infinite wisdom, they consider that such things can be resolved through plea bargain, which is an acceptable practice, and let them do so. But the selective release of names are information that are not going to affect necessarily the major information people know, but basically just throws the market into a high state of uncertainty. Something we do not need. Unless somebody has something to hide.
Femi,
you have gone to ISP, a public institution. Why not release the information?
Femi, let's get it straight a little bit. We have days and weeks ahead to discuss this issue, but let's just scratch the surface, as it were. Plea bargaining. If you, by record and by standards around the world, securities market infractions are not subject oftentimes to plea bargaining. In fact, you attract very lengthy jail sentences. Madoff is doing 150 years in jail in the United States. As we speak, there's a stockbroker, Kingsley Ipe, who is doing 75 years in jail for the shares manipulation of fraud involving the chairman of Orange Drugs. That happened just about 5 years ago, and he was jailed by a proper court of law. Why should this be done in such a way that certain individuals, we're talking about very serious infractions here. For example, in the case of Union Bank, the directors of the bank brought in about 31 billion naira from 2 foreign financial institutions in the United States, and they just took this money to one of their subsidiaries and the money disappeared. Why should that go through plea bargaining?
The SEC engage, just like the public, is in what I call an intellectual intercourse, an unnecessary process of achieving the real thing. Look, there are clear cases. If you want to send a signal to this market that infractions will not be permitted, that we would operate with the best practice, and that transparency and full disclosure will guide the conduct of our market, they have a unique opportunity to do so. The subsequent selective release of names have all but exposed this as just some arrangement to just be seen to be working. And even the release of the press release is selective in itself. If they cannot go the full hog and do so properly within the tenets of what is acceptable, then silence is better. As of today, the so-called press release is not on their website. The information they are providing is not helpful to the market, and it is not also helpful to the process. The Madoff incident which you mentioned was actually done by the SEC itself with other intergovernment agencies based on their admittance that they were wrong. That process of getting set to actually conduct its own investigation helps you to understand where it got things absolutely wrong. My belief, therefore, is that this is an unnecessary process, and if the SEC wants to convince the market that it is trying to bring about a new regime, but we might as well operate on a standard which everybody knows. Not today, tomorrow, and changes, and it's unnecessary.
Femi, shouldn't we at least, or everyone be a little bit happy, or at least gives SEC some kudos right now, perhaps the international community, and say at least for the first time we are bringing the skeletons out of the cupboard, even though perhaps we'll bring out the head or the legs or the fingers out first, because perhaps we are scared of opening.
What skeletons are you bringing out of the cupboard?
Well, at least there are revelations right now from the press release, as it were.
Dealt with price manipulation issues within our market. Can you mention one significant case of price manipulation that has been successfully resolved in this market? Can you mention one single case of insider abuse that have been successfully prosecuted by the SEC? I mean, let's stop these games. Today is a very sad day. Really, let's stop the games. If we got to do some work, let's do the work.
So what do you think we should do?
Go to sleep. Let's all go to sleep. This is a joke.
All right, we just decided not to go to sleep yet. Femi Awoyemi, I'm sure the market will digest some of those information. Femi Awoyemi from ProShare Nigeria analyst briefing on the biggest story hitting Nigeria's Market Street. Custom Street, that's the name where our market is located, the country's financial capital. The Securities and Exchange Commission